He wasn't supposed to see her. Not like this. Not draped in linen and sunlight, directing staff at a design studio that looked like peace had taken physical form. Not smiling, real and easy, while her son reached up to fix a flower crown on his brother's head. His son's. The breath caught in his throat didn't move. He stood frozen at the threshold of a courtyard, filled with calm music and soft chatter, but the only sound he could hear was the quiet crumble of everything he thought he knew. She turned, met his eyes, and time didn't stop. It just hurt. Her mouth parted slightly, but she didn't flinch, didn't run. She stood tall, because that's who she'd always been, more backbone than bitterness. And he was a man who once held her heart like a glass he didn't know how to carry. Before I say another word, if this already has your chest tight, do one thing for me. Hit that like button and subscribe to Mr. Ross Story Trail. I promise you, what you're about to hear might change the way you think about love, loss, and what it really means to show up. He had built a life filled with numbers, names, and accolades, but nothing, not one deal or dollar, could prepare him for the moment he saw himself staring back through the eyes of two children he'd never met. Two boys, same dimples, same cautious stare, same blood. He didn't need a test, he knew. He hadn't just walked away from a woman who loved him. He'd left behind a family that never stopped waiting to be found. What do you say when the woman who once whispered forever into your neck now looks at you like a stranger? What do you do when the children you never knew existed carry your smile but not your name? He wanted to run, not away, but back. Back to nights where her breath warmed his chest and her fingers drew lazy circles on his skin. Back to the soft weight of her head against his shoulder. Back to the version of himself that hadn't yet broken her heart. But time doesn't barter, it collects, and it had been collecting on him for 7 long years. Let me ask you something. Have you ever realized too late that the silence you left behind grew into someone else's healing? She hadn't just moved on. She'd risen, built something sacred with the pieces he dropped, created joy without bitterness, raised 2 boys to smile like life hadn't skipped a beat. And now he stood at the edge of all that light, carrying nothing but apologies that arrived too late. Still, he couldn't walk away. He had to speak, had to face her, had to face them. Stay with me, because what happens next isn't just about heartbreak. It's about redemption, about how a man who built everything discovered he'd lost the one thing he couldn't buy back. Not with pride, only with presence. It started with a stall, not fate, not fireworks, just a broken elevator on the 6th floor of a boutique hotel in downtown Atlanta. He was there for a tech mixer, buttoned up, anxious, clutching a laptop like it held all his worth. She had kicked off her heels after 3 hours of interior design panels and stood barefoot in the corner, twirling a pen between her fingers. They didn't speak at first. He kept staring at the ceiling, silently begging the power to return. She, unbothered, leaned her head against the wall and started humming. Low, smooth, familiar. He turned. Is that Marvin Gaye? Depends, she said without opening her eyes. Will you judge me if it's not? That was the first time he smiled at a stranger in months. They talked about music, about favorite takeout, about how hotel art always looked confused. By the time the elevator doors finally opened 15 minutes later, she was holding her heels in one hand and his number in the other. Their first date was supposed to be coffee, quick, light. But 3 hours later, they were still talking, seated at a quiet cafe patio, sharing stories like old friends who just happened to meet late. He told her how silence made him feel safe. She told him how color made her feel alive. She was vivid, bright when she laughed, warm when she listened, and he was still learning how to let someone see him. She didn't push. She didn't rush him past his quiet. She just stayed. They started spending weekends together. Late breakfast runs, open-air art markets, record store trips. She'd run her fingers along dusty album covers, humming whatever lyrics came to mind. He loved watching her move through space like the world belonged to her, and she'd only stop to share it with him. One Saturday afternoon, while she tucked a vinyl sleeve under her arm, he looked at her and thought, if home was a person. He wasn't used to soft things lasting. Growing up, he learned to earn love by being useful, not vulnerable. So when Naomi held his hand in public like it was second nature, when she looked at him like he was a melody instead of a project, he didn't know where to place that kind of grace. She didn't need him to perform. She just wanted him to show up. And he did, slowly, imperfectly, but fully. He learned how to sit in silence without running, How to say I don't know without shame. How to let someone hold the parts of him that felt unfinished. They would cook together on quiet Sunday nights. She'd dance barefoot to D'Angelo while flipping vegetables in a cast-iron pan. He'd read ingredients twice, triple-check measurements, and still burn the rice. But she never made fun of his clumsiness in the kitchen. She just kissed his shoulder, said, "You're brilliant with code. I'll handle the cumin." One night they lay on the living room floor, staring at the ceiling fan turned slow and steady. She rested her head on his chest, her breath in rhythm with his heartbeat. He whispered, "I've never felt this safe." She smiled against his skin. That's what love's supposed to feel like. A few weeks later, she brought over a box. Inside, 1 coffee mug, 2 cookbooks, and a small ceramic elephant. "I figured we're already halfway living together," she said. "Might as well make it official." He didn't hesitate. By the end of that month, they shared a 1-bedroom townhouse in the old 4th Ward. Small creaky floors, no washer-dryer, and barely any closet space. But it was theirs. A sanctuary. A beginning. Have you ever had a love that made you feel seen for the first time? Drop a heart in the comments if you know what I mean. The power had gone out just after dinner. It wasn't dramatic, just a sudden hush across the house. The refrigerator stopped humming. The lights blinked, then faded. And silence crept in, soft as fog. Naomi didn't curse or complain. She simply lit a match, touched it to a thick candle near the kitchen sink, and watched it catch. The flame glowed against her skin, drawing soft gold across her cheekbones. Her hair was damp from the walk home, curls loose and heavy against her shoulders. A robe hung off one side, tied loosely at the waist, exposing the slope of one collarbone. She looked effortless. He sat on the couch, legs apart, elbows on knees, watching her move from room to room, lighting more candles, setting the tone. She didn't say much. She didn't need to. The quiet between them held more weight than conversation. When she returned to the living room, she paused at the doorway. Her eyes met his. "You look like you haven't exhaled all day," she said softly. He tried to laugh, but it didn't come out right. She crossed the room barefoot. Her skin caught the candlelight, like it remembered the sun. "And you," he said, voice low, "look like moonlight." Her smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. She climbed into his lap like it was familiar, like her body remembered the map of him. Her hands found his face, traced the edge of his jaw, thumb brushing the spot just under his eye. She didn't rush. She kissed him like she was teaching him something, like she wanted him to slow down, not just in body, but in spirit. His hands moved to her waist. Not hungry, just present, just there. And for the first time that week, he breathed fully. She leaned her forehead to his. Their breaths mingled. Her fingertips rested on the back of his neck, warm and unhurried. They stayed there, still, suspended, until he whispered, "I didn't know I could feel like this." She didn't answer with words. She let her hands speak instead, slow and reverent, sliding under his shirt. She touched him like he wasn't just skin and muscle, but memory and meaning. He lifted the fabric over his head and dropped it beside the couch. Her robe slipped open slightly. She didn't adjust it. She didn't need to. There was nothing to hide between them. She guided him back against the cushions, straddling his hips with a calm he didn't know how to name. The candlelight flickered along the curve of her shoulder, her chest, her thighs. Every inch of her glowed. He moved like someone who hadn't touched in a while, but never forgot how. His lips brushed her neck, then her collarbone, then lower. Her breath caught, but not out of surprise, out of recognition. This wasn't wild, this was worship. This was what it looked like when two people stopped performing for the world and simply met each other where they were. Flesh, yes, but also forgiveness. Their movements blurred, not because of haste, but because of ease. They knew each other's rhythm. They didn't have to chase it. They weren't just bodies touching. They were histories unfolding. All the unsaid things, all the pain they'd survived, all the tenderness they hadn't forgotten. His fingers found her hips. Her lips found his name. The candlelight caught in her eyes like dusk meeting dawn. And for one long, quiet night, they didn't carry the past. They held each other instead. He was still shirtless, their breakfast untouched on the counter, when his phone lit up with the offer. A tech investor from the Bay Area. Interested. Urgent. A video demo had made its way into the right inbox. They wanted to fly him out by Friday. First-class ticket. Full backing. Equity on the table. He stared at the screen for too long, thumb hovering, heart racing. Naomi entered the room, pulling her hair into a loose tie, still glowing from the night before. She kissed his shoulder before noticing his silence. "You okay?" He turned to her, holding the phone like it weighed more than it should. They want me in California. She didn't blink. She just nodded. Is this it? She asked. It could be, he said. He expected fear or resistance, maybe a trace of resentment. But Naomi gave him none of that. Go, she said softly. Build it. And you? I'll be right here when you come back. He looked at her. Really looked. What if I'm not the same when I do? Then I'll meet you where you are. He kissed her like he didn't know how long it would have to last. She pressed her palm to his chest like she was leaving a part of herself behind for safekeeping. 2 weeks. That's what they said. 2 weeks became 2 months. And then came the silence. The first few days they texted like nothing had changed. She'd sent photos of the neighborhood dog park, updates on the leaky kitchen faucet, voice notes with her laugh still tucked inside. He'd reply late, but he replied. A week passed. Then 2. His answers grew shorter. She chalked it up to pressure. Long hours, jet lag, a new life taking shape. She never wanted to be a burden, so she gave him space. But space, left unchecked, becomes distance. And distance, when fed by silence, becomes a wall. Her messages became paragraphs. Then questions. Then just dots. Just checking in. You okay? Call me when you can. Nothing. She reread old threads just to hear his voice. Played old voicemails while folding laundry. Her pain didn't come loud. It came quiet, between grocery store aisles, in empty bed sheets, inside dreams that still wore his cologne. The last message she ever sent him wasn't angry. It was a farewell with no punctuation. You deserve more than a woman who keeps waiting for a man who keeps breaking himself to be whole. I love you enough to let you go. She pressed send, closed her laptop, and sat in the dark for a long time, not crying, just still. That night, something in her shifted, not because she stopped loving him, but because she started loving herself more. If you've ever had to let someone go, just to protect your own heart, type, I understand in the comments. Somebody out there might need to read what you survived. The test turned pink 1 week after she sent the final email. She didn't cry. Not then. She just sat on the edge of their bed, her bed now, and placed a hand on her stomach like it already knew what was coming. And 2 tiny heartbeats she hadn't heard yet, already changing everything. She told no one, not right away. Not because she was ashamed, but because she wanted to carry the news first, alone. To cradle it in silence before the world added its noise. At 3 months, she packed her things, gave notice on the townhouse, left a handwritten note for the landlord. No drama, no parade. She moved to Charlotte with 1 suitcase and a quiet resolve. Create a life so rooted in peace that even grief can't uproot it. The first year was hard. Zaire had colic. Zion liked to be held for hours. Naomi was too tired to grieve fully and too busy to fall apart. Nights blurred into mornings. She learned how to swaddle in the dark, how to function on 2 hours of sleep, how to smile at strangers who asked where the father was. But the boys gave her purpose. Zaire's laugh came easily, like hers. Zion was observant, like someone she used to love. They didn't know how much they saved her. They just grew, and so did she. By year 2, she had a modest client list and a home studio with natural light. Word spread. Her designs didn't just decorate homes, they healed them. Clients left her consultations feeling lighter. She poured into her work what she used to pour into love, care, intuition, presence. Naomi never said his name in front of the boys, not because it hurt, but because they never asked. When they were old enough to notice that their family looked different from others, she told them the truth, gently, and only what mattered. He was someone who loved me once, and you two are the best thing that ever came from that love. She never lied. She just didn't bleed. She raised Zaire and Zion with open hands and steady rhythm. Her mornings began with affirmations, oatmeal, and playlists full of old-school soul. Evenings ended with books, deep belly laughs, and 2 little boys curled against her sides like anchors. They knew boundaries, but they also knew softness. Zaire was bold, always asking, always moving. Zion was introspective, always watching, always feeling. She celebrated them equally. Never tried to mold them, only to mirror the best in them. By the time the boys were 6, her business had grown into something more than income. It became a reflection of her healing. Each space she designed felt like a breath of fresh air, clean lines, calming textures, colors that reminded people of warmth they forgot they missed. Her work was in demand, but her heart never left her home. She didn't date, not because she was waiting, but because she was full. Her joy came quietly, on front porch mornings with coffee and sunlight, in giggles from the back seat, in the way her house felt like calm music and fresh bread. She'd built something sacred, not out of revenge, not to prove a point, but because peace was the only thing she ever wanted. And now, she had it. He became everything the world once said he couldn't. Tech wonderkind, investor darling, interviews, panels, features, his face on a business magazine cover under a headline that read "The Architect of the Future." He shook hands with governors, took meetings in glass towers, spoke in rooms where everyone clapped but no one knew his favorite color. His company scaled fast. His bank accounts soared. The numbers proved he was doing something right. But numbers don't hold you when you can't sleep at night, and sleep became rare. The penthouse in San Francisco had floor-to-ceiling windows and views of everything except connection. Some nights he would lie awake, staring at the city lights, wondering what it would have looked like reflected in Naomi's eyes. He never reached out, not once. Because some men confuse distance with damage control. Because pride has a way of sounding a lot like reason. Because success can be loud enough to drown out guilt until the silence returns. That's when Sabine entered his world. She was poised, magnetic, a model with almond skin, French-Haitian roots, and a presence that turned every room into a runway. They met at a launch dinner. She liked his watch. He liked her eyes. She laughed at his dry humor. He admired how little she needed from him. She didn't ask personal questions, didn't press into his quiet, didn't carry memories he was trying to forget. She was perfect on paper, and paper was all he had left. For 6 months, Sabine stayed. They traveled, Greece in July, Montreal in October, matching silk robes, rooftop brunches, curated moments posted to her story. People called them elegant. He called it quiet, not the good kind. He tried to settle into it, this life full of exclusivity and polished stillness. But everything felt surface level, like laughing in an echo chamber. Every kiss was a distraction. Every night ended with more questions than warmth. She noticed. Of course she did. One night, in a Manhattan suite, he drifted off beside her. The city buzzed beyond the windows, but the room felt heavy. At some point in his sleep, he murmured a name. Naomi. It wasn't loud. It wasn't drawn out. But it was enough. Sabine sat up in bed. She stared at him for a long time, one knee pulled to her chest, the glow of a bedside lamp casting shadows across her face. Morning came. She didn't speak right away. She made coffee, lit a cigarette at the window, and waited for him to rise. When he finally did, she didn't look at him, just exhaled and said, "You still dream about her." He didn't pretend to misunderstand. "You don't love me," she added. "You're haunted." He didn't argue, because she was right. They parted without drama, no slamming doors, no tears, just the quiet recognition that whatever they were building had no soul in it. That night he returned to his penthouse, took off his watch, sat in silence. All the money, the views, the applause, the success, and none of it touched the place inside him where Naomi used to rest her head. 7 years had passed since he last heard her voice, not through memory, not in dreams, not from the echo of her name in someone else's mouth, but truly. Since the moment she said goodbye in one line of text and never looked back. He hadn't looked either, until today. The corporate team had scheduled a site visit, a new partnership with a high-end wellness center in Charlotte. His assistant gave him a file with bullet points and a render. He barely skimmed it. Now, standing at the entrance, he understood why. The space felt familiar, not by design, but by energy. Soft earth tones, textures that invited you to breathe deeper. Artwork with meaning, not trend. A hallway where the light curved with intention. Something in him stirred. He didn't belong here. Not really. He moved past the reception area, pretending to scan the layout, pretending he wasn't seconds away from unraveling. Then, there she was, Naomi, across the room, speaking with a client, her voice calm, measured, kind. She wore wide-leg cream trousers and a soft blue blouse, hair twisted into a high bun wrapped in gold thread. She looked stronger, brighter, untouchable. She turned, and their eyes met. She didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't retreat. She blinked once, held his stare, then went back to her client like he was background noise. And somehow, that broke him more than a slap would have. He took a step back, steadying himself against a nearby display shelf. Then came the laughter, small, high-pitched, familiar in a way that made his stomach tighten. 2 boys rushed around the corner carrying sketch pads and a juice box. They were maybe 7. Identical. They were drawing on a bench near the indoor fountain, legs swinging, heads tilted toward each other like they shared every secret. One of them looked up and locked eyes with him. Briefly. Just a glance. That's all it took. Same jawline, same brow crease when they were concentrating. His legs felt strange, like they were holding someone else's weight. He reached for the back of a chair, gripped it tight, swallowed hard. No one told him. No one had to. He was looking at himself split into two. Naomi joined the boys, placed a hand on each shoulder, said something that made them laugh. They leaned into her like sunflowers, like they belonged nowhere else but under her care. He hadn't lost her. He'd lost them. Everything inside him went quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels permanent, like the part of your chest you once lived in is now locked. He backed away slowly. No one noticed. Not really. He made it to the entrance, nodded at someone who didn't speak, walked past the front desk, out into the parking lot. And then, he couldn't go any farther. He leaned against the side of his car, both palms flat against cold metal, head bowed, breathing uneven, his vision blurred. Not from sadness alone, from the cost of it. The cost of being too focused to love, too proud to return, too late to be what he should have been. He didn't wipe his face, didn't try to pull it together. He just stood there, forehead pressed to the glass, letting the tears fall. He didn't know what came next, only that something inside him had changed the moment two boys with his face ran past him like he was no one. He waited at the far end of the rooftop bar, overlooking the skyline like it owed him something. The table had 2 glasses of wine. He didn't know what she liked anymore, so he guessed. When she arrived, she didn't sit right away. She stood across from him, arms folded, eyes unreadable. You reached out. He rose, nodded, couldn't speak. She finally sat. He did too, but slower, like the air was heavier on his side of the table. They're mine, he said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. Yes. He gripped the edge of the table. Why didn't you tell me? You left, she said. I didn't chase. I didn't have your new number, or address, or anything. He exhaled, looked down at his hands. I thought I was doing the right thing, focusing, building something. You did build something, she said softly. Just not with us. He looked up. His eyes were wet. She didn't react. She just sipped her wine and waited for him to find his words. I wasn't ready. I didn't know how to be all the things I needed to be. So you chose to be none of them. That stung, but it was fair. Naomi, he started, voice cracking. I see them now, and I can't breathe. They look like me. They smile like you, and I missed it all. He was crying openly now. No performance, no posturing. I didn't just leave. I lost. She swallowed hard, but didn't let her voice tremble. No, you left. Loss happens to people who have no choice. You had one, and you made it. He leaned back, face in his hands, fingers pressed to his eyes like he was trying to hold himself together from the inside out. Do they know about me? He whispered. No, she didn't say it with anger. There was no venom, just a calm finality that cut deeper than rage ever could. I never wanted them to feel abandoned, so I never gave them a reason to expect anything from you. He looked up, red-eyed, hollow. I want to be in their lives. You don't even know what they like for breakfast. She wasn't being cruel. She was being exact. I want to learn, he said. I want to show up, not with gifts, not as some billionaire father figure, just me. He reached across the table, not to touch her, just to be closer. I still love you. She blinked once. That's not enough. Silence settled between them again, tight, painful, beautiful in its honesty. Then let me prove I can stay, he said, his voice barely a whisper. She didn't say yes. She didn't say no. She just looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time that night. Like she was trying to see the man he might be now, not the one who disappeared. Or was Naomi right to protect her peace? Let us know in the comments. Your voice matters more than you think. He didn't push her for an answer that night. He let her walk away with her dignity intact, her silence preserved. But 2 days later, a message appeared in her inbox. I don't want to fix the past. I just want to meet the parts of it that survived without me. When you're ready, I'd like to meet our sons, not as a CEO, not as a mistake, just as their father. She didn't respond for a day, then 2, then a week, and then she sent one line back. Saturday, 5 p.m. backyard. Come alone. He wore a dark sweater and jeans. No watch, no entourage, just trembling hands and a heart that hadn't slowed in 3 days. When he arrived, the boys were still inside, finishing a board game. Naomi was outside, lighting citronella candles near the porch steps. She wore soft linen, no makeup, and looked like someone who had found peace and learned how to protect it. They'll come out in a minute, she said. Okay, he replied, swallowing a lump in his throat. He sat on the porch steps beside her, knees nearly touching. The silence wasn't heavy this time. It was watchful. She took a sip from her glass. Set it down. They know your name now. I told them yesterday. How did they take it? Zion asked if you were nice. Zaire asked if you were rich. He laughed, nervous, surprised by joy. She smiled, just a little. I said you used to be brilliant, but scared, that maybe now you're trying to be something else. The screen door creaked open. 2 pairs of feet padded out onto the porch. Zaire held a soccer ball. Zion gripped a juice pouch. Both paused when they saw him. He stood, heart loud in his ears. Naomi gently placed a hand on each of their backs. "This is your dad," she said quietly. "You can say hi if you want to." Zion tilted his head. Zaire blinked. "You really are Dad?" one asked. He crouched to their eye level. His voice cracked before he even spoke. "Yes," he said. "And I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner." They didn't say anything. Not right away, but they didn't run. Zaire handed him the soccer ball. "We're about to play. You want to be goalie?" He nodded, breath catching in his chest. Naomi stepped back, arms folded, watching from a distance. They played for half an hour. Laughter came in bursts. Shyness melted into movement. Nothing was forced, nothing rushed, just rhythm finding its way home. Later, after the boys went inside for dinner, Naomi and he stayed outside. The sun dipped low, painting soft light across her cheekbones. She sat beside him again on the porch steps, quiet. He looked at her, voice low. "Let me prove I can stay." She didn't answer, not with words. She reached for his hand, and for the first time in years he felt something spark, not loud, not sudden, just steady, like a breath held too long, finally released. The boys had gone to bed. Naomi stood barefoot at the stove, stirring warm almond milk into 2 mugs. Her robe was loose at the sleeves. The kitchen lights were low, casting soft halos across the counter. He leaned against the doorway, watching her, not with hunger, but with history. She slid a mug toward him without speaking. They stood in silence, sipping slowly. "They like you," she said. "I wasn't sure I'd be enough. You were honest. That's more than I expected." Her voice wasn't cold. It wasn't open either. It was measured, like she was listening to her own heart in real time. He set his mug down, walked closer. "You always made things feel safe," he said. "Even now, even after everything." She looked up at him, not with a smile, not yet, but she didn't step back. He reached out slowly, brushed his fingers against her wrist, tracing the edge of a scar he remembered. She didn't flinch. She didn't close her eyes. Instead, she whispered, "If you're going to love me again, don't leave pieces of yourself behind this time." He closed the space between them, not all at once, first with breath, then with touch, then with the kind of kiss that doesn't chase, but asks. His lips found hers gently, like a question. She answered with her hands, one to his chest, the other to his face. They didn't rush, they remembered. And in that quiet kitchen, something long buried began to stir. The morning came softly. Sunlight slid through the kitchen blinds, touching everything like a blessing. He stood at the stove, hair messy, wearing one of her old sweatshirts. Zaire sat cross-legged on the counter beside him, holding a whisk. Zion leaned against Naomi, helping her slice strawberries. It wasn't loud, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. "You ever cooked before?" Zaire asked. He smiled, flipping a pancake with shaky confidence. "Not like this." At the table they sat as 4, no roles, no titles, just people learning each other's rhythm. After a few bites, Zion looked up. "Can you tell us a story?" He paused, then nodded. "Once there was a man who built something big, so big it reached the sky. Everyone clapped for him. They called him smart, brave, a genius." "Was he happy?" Zaire asked. "He thought he was," Galen said, until one day he looked around and realized he didn't recognize his own heart. The boys went quiet. Naomi watched him, eyes soft. "So what did he do?" Zion whispered. Galen reached across the table and held both their small hands. He came back. He didn't know if he'd be welcome, but he came anyway. Because sometimes the real success isn't in what we build out there. It's the love we return to, the kind that waits, the kind that forgives, the kind that makes us whole. Naomi reached for his hand beneath the table. He didn't look at her. He just held it, tightly, quietly, like a man who finally knew what home really meant. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who still believes in second chances. Like, subscribe, and turn on the bell for more soul-deep storytelling. Only here on Mr. Ross Story Trail.